Hey, it's King Kaiju here, and just found out that Dan Slott, one of the writers on the She-Hulk comic book from days gone, has chimed in on Twitter to bash people claiming that the TV show was not comic accurate. Let the ignorance begin. All right, let's start off by taking a look at the actual tweet itself. So here it is. Anyone saying at She-Hulk official TV show wasn't, quote, comic book accurate, unquote. I'm the guy who has written more issues of She-Hulk than anyone. I've read every single comic from every She-Hulk run, and I'm saying, for the record, it is the most comic book accurate show in the MCU. Alright, before we dissect this, I think it behooves us to investigate Mr. Dan Slott here and find out exactly who he is to make such a statement. Alright, so checking out the writing credits for Mr. Slott here, it appears as though he started out doing a lot of kids stuff. Mighty Mouse, Ren and Stimpy, Powerpuff Girls, Looney Tunes, Scooby-Doo. Okay, finally, he graduated, busts off with Arkham Asylum Living Hell miniseries, which got him some notoriety. And also then, as we see, got him the job to do the relaunch of She-Hulk in 2004. Relaunching in October 2005. Now, that statement alone should be noticed from the standpoint that a series was launched in 2004 and then relaunched in October 2005. That generally suggests the series didn't do too well. There was a bunch of tie-ins and crossovers with Civil War and World War Hulk, which are two of the biggest events going on at that time in comic books. That is what boosted sales for that relaunch. Basically, in a nutshell, they structured these crossover events wisely that in order to get the full picture, you needed to buy all the tie-in. Then, in 2007, he left the title and went on to write Amazing Spider-Man, or be one of the writers on Amazing Spider-Man. So, from basically 2004 to 2007, he had the longest run on She-Hulk. So then he kind of putzed around here and there after that. Great Lakes Avengers, wrote the Thing solo, Avengers Initiative. I mean, then a bunch of work on Amazing Spider-Man, including the big time storyline, which was the switching of Peter Parker's with Dr. Octopus. That was a really, really great thing. And then Silver Surfer series, everything else. Bottom line, though, I wanted to draw attention to this. January 2020, Diamond Comics released its top 100 best-selling comics of the decade. 9 of those titles were ones written by Slott. And if you go up here a little further, I'm going to backtrack. He has some good awards under his belt. 2016 Eisner Award for Best Single Issue. 2014 Diamond for Top Dollar again. All right, so looks like we're definitely dealing with the real deal. I mean, he did have the longest run. He has written some award-winning books and has written some top-selling books. So ostensibly, that indicates the guy knows what he's doing. Accepted, this was all, back from 2004 forward. But the only question that remains is what's going through his head now. So there was some replies to that tweet that I think shed more of a light. All right, so the first thing we see is Dan himself flying to a couple of other replies from individuals saying, quote, that's not the point. Nobody was arguing about that. And then Dan says, yes, they were a lot. They actually weren't. And he even follows up with, after posting this, literally got a post starting out, no one's saying the show isn't comic accurate, pal. In which he replies, love the goalpost moving because the whole the show isn't comic accurate talking point has been going on for months from people who clearly have never read She-Hulk. I can safely say, in all of the material that I saw about She-Hulk, which was quite a lot, there was very little, if any, criticizing it for not being comic accurate. There was criticism for it being not comic accurate in this vein, which Dan Slott has interestingly completely not addressed. The criticism was that when John Byrne did the fourth wall breaks, they were absolutely brilliant and were utilized to flesh out stories that were going on, as you got to see effectively the inside of Jennifer Walters' mind in a direct manner, with her interacting directly, or it allowed them to do something slightly clever. The fourth wall breaks on the TV show were abysmal. They served no purpose, no function whatsoever, and the fourth wall break destruction of the finale was so insultingly bad that it did a complete disservice to that in the comic books. That's the only criticism I saw, which was legit and goes unanswered by Mr. Slott. However, he does continue. Bust da Moves says, dang, well, it wasn't that good if it was accurate to the comics. Lol, it was the most painfully slow show to sit through. Which, yes, it was painful, if not just for the comedy factor. And, of course, I don't mean it was comedic, but we got to make comedic statements about it to everyone watching it. But he does make a very interesting point. He's like, hey, if you're saying it was accurate, you're doing a disservice to the comic because the show was so terrible. But of course, Dan's got a comeback. You realize if you don't like something, you don't have to sit through it, right? Like, switch over to another show. Find something you like and maybe spread the word about how much you like that other show. That feels like a sensible thing to do right. Admitting he has absolutely no defense for that state whatsoever. But the real fun came. Anidas, the god of pain, says, I know there's a handful of people who try to take stabs at it being inaccurate, which is nonsense. But the way they vilify men at every single chance they get, that's what turned me off of the show. They literally made every character other than Daredevil a sweaty creep. To be fair, he's right. Bottom line. And it wasn't even that they made guys sweaty creep. It's that every guy was terrible, including Daredevil. But Dan's got an answer for this, and you're going to love it. Pug, Wong, Luke, Bruce, Matt, Ted, Jen's dad, an entire support group of men. There were way more supportive and good men in the show than creeps. The only characters that were vilified were the villain. Okay, I have to think that this is blinders being up, right? As we saw, this man, Dan Slott, is capable of good writing. Ergo, he has to know what are good characters and what are not. Every character he lists was abysmal. Now, they may not have been creepy. So if he's going to try to die on this sphere of being literal, like you literally said they're creepy, and I'm going to literally show you they're not creepy, maybe you win. Not the point. Okay. Pug, on name alone, should give you an idea of what the writers thought. Pug was this little lapdog for all the women on the show. He was completely inoffensive, did whatever they wanted, and gave them unconditional praise and adoration and validation, which is what every woman on that show craved. Wong was utterly emasculated in this show. He had already been on the decline from the Multitude of Madness, but now a sorcerer supreme having to go to court to stop a magician from using a sling ring is insultingly bad and just completely depowered and emasculates Wong. Luke, I had to look this up. I couldn't even remember. Luke was the fashion designer that effectively was there to design clothes that anyone could have designed. She could have got it at a big and tall store. And then shrieked like a little girl when violence was threatened. Yeah, that's a good male character. Bruce, the less said about Bruce Banner in this show, the better. An utter decimation of the Hulk character in every way. They messed up the origin. She was better than him in every way. Smarter. Completely diminished his struggle. The struggle not just from the comic books, but just the struggle in the MCU. Unbelievable destruction of the Bruce Banner character. Matt Murdock, completely emasculated. The big joke is having him do the walk of shame, which A, men can't do the walk of shame, and if you had half a brain you would know that, and B, the writers thought it would be really, really clever if we had him carrying his boots like women carry high heels, ignorant of the fact it's not comfortable walking in high heels. Boots? Yeah, it is. Ched. I had to look up Ched. Ched was her cousin that was in like 3 scenes. Comic relief, sort of a redneck. Yeah, great, strong representation. Jen's dad. So Jen's dad's an interesting one. Jen's dad was the dad that A, all the writers wanted for one scene, which is where he supported her, and then 2, viewed their own fathers as completely inept and ridiculous, which is what he was painted out to be. So that's your great male representation in She-Hulk, Mr. Slott. Did want to pull your attention to one more thing about Mr. Slott, and that is that he apologized on Twitter regarding his comics involving Spider-Man character Silk for, quote, playing into racial stereotypes, and that, quote, those story choices were a mistake. I was not aware of this, that there was even a controversy, so thankfully they did reference it. So I went over to the reference to try to understand what the controversy was about. And basically, Dan Slott wrote on Twitter that making Cindy Moon and Peter Parker's relationship so sexual in the comics due to attraction caused by pheromones was a bad idea and a mistake, and was happy to see the storyline dropped by future writers. And then goes on to say a little bit about how he felt bad that other people had told him it played into Asian stereotypes. So I think that reveals a couple things. First and foremost, oh no, people have sex, not that. Now, the argument can be possibly made, oh, well, comic books are for kids. Duh, haven't been that way in forever. And B, they're not showing them naked in a bed boning graphically. They even had a little caption, them being caught being kissy kissy, as far as kids are concerned, in public or whatever else. Ha ha ha. But more importantly, he apologized for Asian stereotypes because other people told him that he was doing Asian stereotypes. I would be utterly fascinated what that Asian stereotype was. I don't know. Was Silk, good in math? Guess that's a stereotype. I mean, give me a break. How stupid is that? But the fact that he was willing to just not have a pair of balls at all explains more what he's doing. Now, again, all he's doing, trying to white knight all these people, not just women apparently, but just anyone who questions him. Did it with Silk, does it now with She-Hulk. No one asked for your opinion on this. Felt free to give one for no other reason than you thought it would white knight you to God knows who. So I didn't read the rest of the Twitter thread. Maybe you guys did. If so, chime in, let me know just how crazy this guy got.